If I were starting a card game studio today, knowing what I know now after 10 years of building games played by 20 million players, I would do almost everything differently. I founded BlankMediaGames and made town of Salem, and a lot of mistakes. Expensive ones. The kind that nearly killed the studio more than once. And I've watched the card games industry evolve over the last decade, both as a player and as a designer. I've seen what's working now, what's failing, and what's completely changed since we started. So what would I do differently if I were launching a card game studio in 2026? So there's three big shifts. How you build your community, why licensed IP matters more than ever, and why is physical beating digital right now. Now here's how we built BlankMediaGames and how most studios still operate. Step one, you're spending 2 to 3 years building the game in secret. Step two, you're launching with as big of a marketing push as you can get. Step three, you're hoping people care. And then step four, you're trying to build that community after you launch, and that's backwards. Here's what I would do different today. Build that community before you build the product. The indie game landscape has completely changed. The best way to get attention isn't a polished trailer. It's an audience that's already invested in your success before you launch. Look at what's working right now. Lorcana, Disney's new TCG, didn't just drop the game and hope, right? They built hype for months. Previews, influencer partnerships, community events. By the time they launched, people were camping outside the stores. And Slay the Spire, not a TCG, but the same principle. The devs were active in roguelike communities years before launch. When they finally shipped, they had a lot of people excited to play day one. Flesh and Blood started with organized play and community infrastructure at a small scale before the game was widely available. They built it up over time. Here's the playbook I would run today. 6 to 12 months before launch, start creating content about the space, not your game. Don't talk about your unreleased game yet. Talk about the passion you have for the games that you love, what makes good card games, what you're learning. Become a visible member of that community. This does two things. It establishes you as someone who knows what they're talking about, and it attracts people who will care about your game when it exists. And two, you can build in public. Share your design process, post your card prototypes, ask for feedback on mechanics. Let people feel like they're part of the creation process. People love to support what they help build. And three, create a Discord from day one. Not join when the game launches, join now. Make it a place for enthusiasts, not just for your game, but for any game, to host design discussion, to run community events, build the social fabric before your product exists. Number four, run closed beta and alpha with your community. You don't need to hire a QA team. Your community is your QA team. Give early access to the people who've been following your journey. They'll find bugs, give feedback, and become your loudest advocates. 3 to 6 months before launch, organize your tournaments. Even if it's just print and play, get people playing, get them invested, get them talking about your game before it's available for purchase. And on launch day, you're not launching to strangers. You're launching to a community that's been waiting for this. They've seen that game evolve. They've given their feedback. They've joined the creative process. They've already told their friends. And launch is hot from day one. This is the single biggest thing I changed about how I started a studio. Now, most designers hate this. I personally hate this. But if I were starting today, I would not create an original IP game. I would license an existing IP. And here's why. Digital IP TCGs are tough. Let's look at the data. The last 5 years of successful TCG launches, Lorcana, One Piece, Star Wars Unlimited, Marvel Snap. You know, the original launches in that same period, we've got Flesh and Blood and Sorcerer. The ones that survived either had massive budgets or spent years building community first. And here's the kicker. Magic the Gathering, the 30-year king of original IP games, has figured this out too. Universe Beyond. For those who don't know what Universe Beyond is, I'm jealous. It's Magic's line of sets using licensed IP. Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, Avatar. The Universe Beyond sets are the best selling of all time. Now, do I like this? No. I'm a Magic player. I love the original Magic lore. Dominaria, Ravnica, Phyrexia. But that's the game I fell in love with. But personally liking something doesn't change the business reality. So if you're starting from scratch, you need to create game mechanics, which is hard. Create compelling IP, which is also hard. Build an audience, which is also hard. Convince people to spend their money on your game, which is very hard. That's 4 massive challenges all at once. Using licensed IP eliminates number 2 and number 3 from that list. And obviously there are trade-offs. You don't own the IP. If the license expires or gets pulled, you're done, right? You have creative constraints. You can't just make Gandalf a villain or give Batman a gun. You usually pay royalties. A cut of every sale goes to the IP holder. But if I were starting today and I had the money to get an IP, here's my approach. License a mid-tier IP for a short-run physical game. Not Marvel, not Disney. Those are too expensive. Find an IP that's beloved, but isn't in the TCG space. You know, something like a cult TV show, maybe Castlevania, indie video game properties, you know, something like Hades or Hollow Knight, anime that hasn't been done well yet, you know, like Berserk or Chainsaw Man. So why a short physical run? Lower upfront cost than digital, proves you can execute, and it builds your reputation. It tests the product market fit with real money, and if it's successful, you can keep supporting your success while you create your own original IP. Now you have a proven track record, a community that trusts you, cash flow to fund your original development, your distribution relationships. Then you can take your risk on an original IP. It's risky, and licensed IP is costly, so you just have to choose what risk you want to take. So like I said, physical seems to be beating out digital right now. 5 years ago, everyone said digital TCGs were the future. Hearthstone was printing money and physical was dying. Today, physical TCGs are thriving. And I want to show you 2 case studies that prove exactly why I'd bet on physical if I were starting today. Flesh and Blood and Sorcery Contested Realm. So here's what happened to digital TCGs in the last 3 years. Legends of Runeterra, shut down, basically now a physical TCG called Riftbound. Artifact, dead within 6 months. Elder Scrolls Legends, dead. Gwent, barely alive. The only big survivors, Hearthstone, Magic Arena, Marvel Snap. Meanwhile, 2 physical TCGs launched in the last 5 years and are crushing it from the indie space with completely different strategies. Let me show you what they're doing right. Flesh and Blood launched in 2019. No big IP, no massive marketing budget, just a guy named James White in New Zealand who wanted to make a better TCG. Here's how they did it. Flesh and Blood didn't do a mass market launch. They went to local game stores only and seeded their product to those game stores and organized playgroups first. They built up that grassroots community and then created local tournaments with prize support. No big ad campaigns, no influencers partnerships, just play the game and tell your friends. Players became fans because they felt like they discovered something, you know, something that was hidden. Only after the community was strong did they expand to wider retail. And digital games need mass market scale to justify the server costs and the upfront development overhead. You have to go big or go home. Physical games can grow slowly. Small print runs, low investment. You know, Flesh and Blood built a $100 million business by starting small and scaling with demand. Sorcery Contested Realm launched in 2023. It's a brand new game, original IP. In less than 2 years, it's already competing with established games. Sorcery's art is gorgeous, like museum quality fantasy art on every card, and that's not an accident. The game's creator is an art first, designer second. He built the game around the idea that every card should be frameable art. And Sorcery is selling to collectors as much as players. And collectors only exist in physical. And Sorcery isn't selling just through game stores. They're also selling through art galleries, art galleries, because those cards are marketed as collectible art, not just game pieces. They're doing direct to consumer, right? The limited edition boxes sold exclusively through their website. They're doing Kickstarter campaigns with special editions and exclusive content for backers. And Flesh and Blood are doing completely different games, but they both prove the same thing. Physical TCGs can survive and thrive in 2026 by leaning into what physical does better than digital, right? Real collectability, in-person community, that premium product feel. So here's what I would do differently if I were starting a game studio in 2026. So here's what I would do differently if I were starting a card game studio in 2026. 1, build that community before the product. 2, license an IP for your first game if you can. And 3, start with physical and not digital. These aren't the moves we made at BlankMediaGames, but they're the ones that I would make today.